Hey guys, welcome to another video. And yes, like I said in my last video, just getting over a cold, so I might sound a little congested in this video. I apologize. Alright, She-Hulk's been done for about a week now. I thought I'd just talk about the whole thing, might as well. I've already talked about it. I did a whole video with the first 4 episodes. I even briefly talked about it as the worst show of the year, which it is, with Resident Evil. It's very close to which one is the worst, but they're both probably one of the worst things I've seen in television in years. I think She-Hulk, though, is the worst thing Marvel has made. Marvel Cinematic Universe. Maybe Marvel in general, but let's just go with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think this is the worst thing they've done. Worse than Iron Man 2, worse than Thor Love and Thunder, worse than anything they've made. And why? Easy. The show isn't likable. The show has no real vision to it. It's not funny. It's not creative. It looks like something that was made 25 years ago. And the show is not geared for a single person. The show likes to think it's for like hardcore comic book fans. I don't even think they would even like anything that's going on, because the show, even though it has the fourth wall breaks, it doesn't even feel like the She-Hulk comics, even though the She-Hulk comics weren't even all that great, but it doesn't even feel like the She-Hulk comics, because at least there was still an actual story within the She-Hulk comics. And there was actually a little bit of care and actual comedy in the comic books. There's none of that in this show. This entire show is here to prove like a point that men are evil, and internet trolls are the real villains in this world. And Jennifer Walters, no matter how unlikable she is the role model for all women out there. Which is the stupidest thing ever, and I don't think a single woman should ever look up to Jennifer Walters. Look up to better female characters. Gamora, Natasha Romanoff, Wonder Woman, fucking Furiosa, Mad Max, sure, I love her. But I'm going to mostly talk about the last few episodes, because I did a whole little breakdown of the first 4 episodes, because I got to see that early. God, those were terrible.
Tasted that. Num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest. You ain't never gotta heat me up.
So yeah, I already talked about the first episode, how she insults Bruce Banner, all that shit. That was just unbearable. The episode I want to talk about first, actually, is this wedding episode, where Jennifer has to go to a wedding for a friend, and she's going to be a bridesmaid at this wedding and stuff. This is easily one of the worst episodes. I thought the first episode was the worst, but this one might be the worst, because nothing happens. This entire episode is just show you how awful this one rich dude is, and just how selfish and self-absorbed Jennifer is as a character. She goes to this wedding, and this bride wants just the day to be about her, which is what the weddings are about. I just got married a few months ago, and that's what the weddings are about. They're about the bride and the groom to celebrate their love for each other. But Jennifer's Jennifer. She comes to the wedding, and she comes as She-Hulk, and everyone's praising her, oh my God. And then the bride's what are you doing? This wedding's not about you, it's about me. And then she's oh, I'm not trying to make it about you, make it about me and stuff. And I'm yeah, you are. So yeah, basically this entire show is Jennifer saying, poor me. Why can't I express my beauty and stuff? And why aren't people paying attention to me? Even though this day is about her friend and her wedding day. But Jen is making this entire thing all about her. And I'm God, she is such an unlikable bitch in this fucking episode. All episodes. And then it goes to the lawyers, the female lawyers, and they're representing this rich dude who's an immortal and stuff, and he's being sued by all his partners who all want his money and stuff, because he's loaded and shit. And these girls are his lawyers, but they're constantly just the whole episode talking how awful he is and just how he should do the right thing and all that stuff. I'm and yes, he is not the most likable guy, but you can't do that. When you're a lawyer in real life, not in this BS comedy show, you can't judge your client. You have to be impartial. You work for them. You don't put your personal opinions in it. You have to be a professional lawyer. But this entire episode is these two girl lawyers making fun of him the whole time and calling him this like selfish person and stuff. And, oh, why don't you talk to your wives and stuff? Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that is none of any lawyer's business. They actually can't do that. They would get fired. Absolutely fired if they did any of that. But the show doesn't... The writers of the show even said they didn't know anything about law, which is weird. Why'd they make a show about law if they didn't know anything about it? But, like, this show gets crazy with its law. But, again, it just has this moment of all these girls bitching at him and blah, blah, blah. And it leads to a scene that probably anyone who was in this situation would probably do.
So messed up.
Like, so
any sort of personal growth, right?
No, I'm not sure who I should worry about. The government?
Because he does it every single time.
Was there an insurance claim after any of the ends of switching identities?
Yep, I feel you, buddy. And then again, nothing happens in this episode. It just is Jen at the wedding complaining that the attention's not all on her, and then she fights Titania, and again ruins the wedding. Like, the bride was worried and stuff. But then at the end of the wedding, the bride's like, oh, I wanted to be She-Hulk. Oh, it's okay. It's okay you ruined my wedding. I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Oh, this show's stupid. And yeah, I hated this episode so much. Everything that happened in this episode was just so unlikable. And this whole episode was just trying to show, like, oh, how vulnerable Jen is a character. But this entire episode, she's just ruining the day of, like, one of her good friends. And she clearly didn't want to be a bridesmaid. Like, why didn't you go to the wedding then? Like, and then it's just about these other girls trying to embarrass their client. I'm like, he's your client. You're not supposed to... whatever. The next episode I'm going to talk about is the Daredevil episode. I hate what they did with Daredevil in this show. Love Charlie Cox, and I think his acting in the show is good. I think he is always really great, but they make him smile so much, and they try to make him jokey a little bit. Like, he does have his, like, brooding moments, but this is definitely not the same Matt Murdock in the Netflix show. Because if it was, he probably wouldn't be hooking it with Jen, and he would not be changing his suit to that gold. The reason his suit was, like, dark red or even black is so he can blend into the night. But when he's got this gold, it's a little hard to blend into the night. So I hate the new costume. I don't give a fuck if it's in the comics. It doesn't make any sense to have this costume. When you have a mask that's like bright gold, it's a little hard to blend into the shadows. When it's dark red, it's a lot easier than gold. It's really dumb. But again, this episode starts with, like, you know, she's taking on Matt Murdock off of this, like, client and stuff. And it's this guy that designs She-Hulk's, like, costumes and stuff, and there's a guy who bought, like, a suit from him, and it was defective, so he's suing him, and Jen is the lawyer of this guy, and Matt's the lawyer of the dude who made the suits. And this entire courtroom scene is so dumb and so stupid. And I'm just like, wait, what? This would never actually go to court. Like, what? And of course, Jen loses because her client's an idiot. And she even calls him an idiot. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, it's funny because Jen is such a bad lawyer because all the stuff in the scene she finds out about her client, she finds out in the courtroom. You're supposed to find all that out before you go to trial. Before you go to court, you should be knowing everything about your client. But she doesn't know anything because she's a terrible lawyer. I'm like, wait, you're supposed to be a lawyer. You didn't know any of this shit going in about your client. Oh, God. She's like the shittiest lawyer ever. And then we got like this like really bad chemistry between Charlie Cox and Tatiana Maslany, and it's really weird. And then like she finds out he's Daredevil, and then we got like a She-Hulk versus Daredevil fight, which is like not even a fair fight. He's a human man and she's a Hulk. And there's literally a scene where she like picks up a car and throws it at him and like almost kills the man. I'm like, wait, she's supposed to be like our hero. She almost kills the dude and shit. And then there's a scene where she like takes his mask off. And she's like, Matt, have you been pretending to be blind? That's very insensitive of you. even though I just threw a car at you and almost murdered you, but how dare you pretend to be blind? And he's like, no, I am blind. And then, of course, because the show has such bad writing, like Daredevil, the television show Daredevil, that show like went into so much detail about his blindness and his abilities and how he can control them and how his abilities work. What do they do in this show? They do this.
Kinda. It's, I basically have really good hearing. Or at least, I did.
Fucking hate this show. And then it leads, like, She-Hulk and Daredevil have to get the bad guy. And then Daredevil's like, you know what, let me handle it. I'm an actual hero, you are not. And she's like, yes, I am. Even though the whole entire show, she hasn't done a single thing heroic. And she even said at the beginning of the show, she doesn't want to be a superhero because they're for narcissists and men with daddy issues. Even though she clearly has daddy issues, but she wants to be a hero anyways. Then it leads to this warehouse scene and a hallway scene that isn't a Daredevil hallway scene because the Daredevil hallway scenes are always great and they're all done in like one take. This one is done in like a bajillion takes and shaky cam, and for some reason the bodyguards have crossbows instead of guns. It's really stupid. Then we get like She-Hulk, she crashes through the roof and like kills 4 dudes. I'm like, okay, we're not gonna talk about that. She just murdered a bunch of dudes? Okay, whatever. Then they rescue the guy, catch the bad guy, and then She-Hulk and Daredevil hook up. It's so funny. It's not funny at all. And then it ends with Daredevil doing the walk of shame. Funny. I don't get the joke. Like, because Daredevil, it's like a woman and like a college chick doing the walk of shame. I don't get it. Is that supposed to be funny? Like, I don't get it. Like, okay. For one thing, I also don't understand the walk of shame, really. Why is he still in his Daredevil suit? Like, Daredevil never goes out in broad daylight with his suit. Like, why isn't he just, like, you know, try to, like, you know, get normal clothes or, you know, try to, like, he's this kind of guy who, like, sneaks onto rooftops, but he's just, like, walking in plain daylight with no shoes on for some reason, kind of, like, walking the shit. I'm like, wait, what, wait, why? It's broad daylight, what are you doing? I don't know. And did Jen just kick him out of the house or something? I don't fucking know. It makes no sense, and I just don't like how they did Daredevil like this. It just doesn't even feel like Daredevil. Even though Charlie Cox is really great and stuff, but I don't buy him and Jen as a couple. I don't buy it. It just doesn't make sense. They have no chemistry with each other and stuff, and just I don't know. Just hated it. Just stupid. But let's talk about that finale. And every She-Hulk fan, which there is a bit of, it's a weird fan base, I guess, but people said this was a brilliant finale. So funny, so clever. This is brilliant. This is one of the best things Marvel has done. No, it's not. It's stupid. This entire episode, the beginning of the episode, is Jennifer's tracking the King Hulk guy, this new guy who's the Hulk. He's going to be his own Hulk and stuff. And he's working with Abomination because Abomination got to bring him back and stuff. And where this all leads is just so stupid. All the villains this entire show that's been building up to is this guy who's basically like an incel. Oh yeah, they did that. And it's a group of dudes who just don't like She-Hulk. You know, some of the reasoning is pretty, you know, it's pretty, I understand, but like, that's what this show's been building to. Is just a bunch of angry dudes not liking women. That's what the whole show's been about. Like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That is fucking dumb. And then She-Hulk looks at the camera and she's like, this plot makes no sense. Who wrote this? And then she like breaks through the fourth wall, you know, like Deadpool did in the comic book series and stuff. Then she like goes through the Disney Plus and she comes into the real world. Crazy, I know. And then so weird when she comes into the real world and she's like going to Marvel Studios, and then everyone's just like okay with it. Like She-Hulk's just walking by. They're like, seems logical. This actually could have been very funny if it was real. Like, It's like the opening to Ted when a teddy bear comes to life.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Jesus H. Fuck!
Let's all be best friends.
Oh my God! John, get away from that thing. Get over here, right now.
But Dad.
Get over here! Listen to your mother. Come here. Helen, get my gun.
Dad, no! Is it a hugging gun?
Helen, get my gun and call the
Like,
police.
that's funny. If someone saw She-Hulk in real life, people were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, but no, everyone's like, oh, She-Hulk, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be on the television. Like, it's like, what is happening? And again, the show thinks it's so clever because, like, we're meta. Even though meta can be done very well if it's clever. You gotta be clever with your meta. This one isn't. It just flat out just like goes for it. Like, and that's not clever. You gotta be very subtle with your meta humor. Like the first Scream was very subtle with it. And Deadpool isn't as subtle, but actually Deadpool's a lot more subtle than this movie and stuff. And it's like the Muppets and stuff. The Muppets is very clever with its meta humor, but this show just like, oh, we're making a television show. And people thought this was so brilliant. What a unique thing to do. I've never seen this done before. Even though Last Action Hero did it. And also the X-Files did it in an episode. The Simpsons did it in an episode. Family Guy did it in an episode. Roseanne did it in an episode. Supernatural did it in an episode. Buffy the Vampire Slayer did it in an episode. But hey, She-Hulk. Pretty awesome, right? No. So, she goes to all the writers, and the writers like, whoa, we're trying to think of a good ending in the season 2 and stuff. Maybe season 2 will be a dream sequence. I'm like, okay. And she's like, that's not clever. See, she points out flaws in her own show. Clever. And then she meets Kevin. You're like, is it Kevin Feige? No, it's a robot. What? I'm like, what? And then like you see all the Marvel movies on the screen, and she's like, what's going on? It's like I've never seen a movie before in my life. And then Kevin talks to her and tells her all about the show, and then she's like, am I going to get my own movie? He's like, no. And then he's like, could you not be She-Hulk? The budget, you know. I'm like, oh, funny, because the show's cheap looking. The show even knows it's terrible. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know why people thought this was so brilliant. This entire sequence, people were like, this is incredible. This is amazing. I've never seen this. I'm like, you've never seen this before? This has been done before in comics. It's been done in books and shows and movies. This is not a new thing. This is just stupid and just unoriginal and just like, okay. And the whole episode is just her making fun of the show. And I'm like, that's not funny because the show isn't funny. We already know the show isn't funny. You saying the show isn't funny because we already know that. And then she goes back, beats the bad guys, all that shit. And then goes on a date with Matt again. Matt Murdock. They bring Daredevil back. He just like kind of vanishes, like pops up out of the middle of nowhere. I'm like, okay. The show makes no sense, and the show doesn't care to make sense. So just roll with it. And then like he meets her parents at the end of the episode. I'm like, wait, what? Like, you're not dating him. You had one night stand with him, and he's like meeting her family. I'm like, okay, this is, and it's like really awkward and uncomfortable, and okay, I'm like, this is weird. And then Hulk shows up, and he has a son. How? Why? Is it explained? No. You know, it doesn't really make sense. And I know everyone's like, he has a son in the comics. I'm like, yes, but they didn't explain that in the show. They didn't explain that in the movies. In the first episode, he didn't say I had a son. I don't get it. Then the show ends with her talking to a reporter, and she's like, I stand for justice. Even though in the season, Jennifer Walters, she went to prison, and you actually can't be a lawyer when you have a criminal record. Especially in a lot of states, the United States, you can't actually be a lawyer when you have a criminal record, but she has a criminal record now. But I guess the show doesn't even tell you if it, like, you know, it got taken care of, but like, whatever, we gotta wrap the show up. And then the guy's like, all right, so what are you wearing? And she's like, oh, you men, and then she like walks away, and that's how the season 1 ends. It's so brilliant. Great commentary of society, because men, they're awful. All they want is women to be sex objects. They don't care about strong, independent females. It's a lot of shit, but, you know, that's how the writers think how men are. This show is a great example of people who don't know how to write male characters. They don't know how to write female characters. And they don't know how to write comedy. I didn't even get into all the law stuff. It's insane. I'd love to see a lawyer react to this show. Just none of these people would ever be lawyers in real life. They have no idea what they're doing, and it's fucking ridiculous. The entire show is ridiculous. It's not funny. It's not clever. It's super unlikable. And the show is proud of it. It's proud that it's unlikable. It's proud it's like pissing people off and annoying people because that's what they want. I'm like, how is that a good show then? A show is deliberately made to annoy people and piss people off and make people hate it. How is that a good thing? How is that even a positive thing? Like, this entire show is just meant to annoy people. Even when the show ended, like, the writers took online and saying, like, yeah, this is an entire fuck you to the fans. It's a fuck you to everybody on Twitter. And the show is about sex positivity, especially for kids. I'm like, wait, what? What'd they just say? Like, they're, like, digging their own graves, man. Like, what are you talking about? It's insane. The show is sheer insanity. It's like this show was supposed to be like a big troll. And honestly, if it was, maybe it is kind of clever. But no, it's a show that is meant to say a message. If you agree with it, you get the show. If you don't agree with it, you're the problem. You know what I say to that? Fuck you, She-Hulk. Thanks for watching. Join the dark side.